Hi, this is Ben. Ben Gillette, Ben and Teller. Big guy does magic, smaller guy next to me, he does magic too. He doesn't talk that much. Anyway, I wanted to welcome you to In Time with Nick. And, what's that, Teller? What's that, Teller, what's that? Oh, yeah, Teller wanted to say welcome to In Time too, but his mic is off, like Nick. Love you all. Peace.
Hello everyone, welcome to Downtime, and since Ethan is not yet here with us, I'm going to put that shield down. We're hoping he joins us. He knows the time, he's got the link. Unfortunately, he does know I'm hosting, so we were trying to keep that from him, but he figured it out, so who knows if he's actually going to show up. Also, let me clear up the live chat there just a little bit. There we go. And all right. So at any rate, thank you all for joining us. And we already have a super chat, which we really appreciate. So let me get to that. That's UTV and Ham, $10. General support to keep the lights on. Thank you very much. It's been a challenge on occasion, so we really do appreciate your support, and a number of you have been members, and we understand. I get all the time people saying, well, I'd like to find a way to support. Hitting the like button helps. The reason all of us say it isn't because it's like written in the contract. You have to say it. All of us hate saying it. But when you hit the like button, when you show this when you share to people that you think are going to like the content, it really does help us out. So there are a lot of ways to help, and the super chats and memberships are, of course, a huge help. You can also join us on the Discord. You can help us find news. You can help us share news, and you can. It's the participants on the Discord that really kind of determines the direction of the show. So come on down there and help out, or just sit and watch. We're an educational program, so if you're learning something, hopefully everybody's helping everybody. We may talk about education a little later today. Lance, how are you doing?
I'm surviving.
Yeah, that seems to be the general...
Yeah, about the top level you can get these days.
I put a meme in the Discord. We're about 3 seconds away from the My Pillow guy becoming Surgeon General. I was like, yeah, I think that's about where we are. Michelle Ferguson, $4.99 for the whiskey fund. Thank you. That was something I was going to talk with, and it's been a while for me. have had an interesting relationship with alcohol, but I haven't really had anything to drink in about 10 years. But yes, it was whiskey there for a while. We were going to talk with Ethan, who I guess is a bit of a connoisseur, but since Ethan is a no-show, and if any of you know Ethan personally, I wouldn't want you to make fun of him for not showing up or give him a hard time or say, where were you? We really wanted to see you. Don't do anything. Please don't do anything like that. Or, just, spam him and say, we had to watch Nick and Lance with, who wants to, just don't give him a hard time. You can find him on the Prolib channel. His email is right there. We're going to put a copy of his email on the Discord in case anybody wants to know what it is, but don't use it to send him a message and give him a hard time about not showing up. No matter, just don't do that. Can we smack him around at least? Absolutely not. Absolutely
fun out of things.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right, perfect. So, oh dear God! The other thing I was thinking about was we've already talked about our favorite books. We can talk about them again, but I will say this. Oh my God, I've forgotten his first name. Jonathan Pye. So I should drop a link to Jonathan Pye. Let me drop a link in the Discord. Jonathan Pye is hilarious. The link I'm going to drop here is. Here it is. This is from when Trump won the first time against Hillary Clinton. And to tell you the truth, I was going to do this as a cold open. I just figure it deserves all the attention it can get. Jonathan Pye is absolutely hilarious. He pretends to be a news anchor, and usually the way each of his shorts go is he'll actually be like, today the Tory government, tried to pass this legislation or did this, and here is footage from the House of House of Lords, and then as that footage is playing, he'll start talking about something and then he'll go off on a rant. But in my experience, his rants are brilliant, and he really breaks down sort of the cause of things. And with Hillary Clinton, he's just like, I'm not surprised Trump won. I don't know why people are surprised that he won. Hillary Clinton, her message was, what was it that he had said? Dear Lord, I can't remember. The Hillary Clinton one is the one I dropped, but he was talking about this one with Kamala Harris, and he said, she never went out and said she stood for anything. At least Trump stood for things. They were terrible things, bad things, but he stood for things. She stood for, I'm not him, which isn't...
I think that's an overstatement. She did say some of the programs that she wanted to push forward and the things she wanted to do, but I think the screw up came much earlier than that, because you'll remember, if you think back early in his term, Biden had said he planned on only being a single-term president.
Yes.
And then for some bizarre reason, he decided, I'm going to run for re-election. And it wasn't until public ire was so against the Democrats that they figured, we better change horses in midstream. It wasn't the right way to run a campaign. What they should have done is started her as the prima facie, nominee right from the start. That would have given her time to establish policies, explain what she wanted to do and everything. Instead, it was like, this constant running to catch up with things from the start. Conversely, Trump had basically been campaigning since the day he left office.
That's a good point. Well, and the two other things. First of all, when she was asked what would you say or do differently than the current Biden administration, and she was like, well, really nothing. I don't think she meant it. I think she didn't want to undermine the current administration because she was still the VP. But the problem is you can't say that, because then it really is it's like, so you have no new ideas. You have no way to improve on what can't possibly be considered a perfect administration. So that was the first one. The other one that I had pointed out, I had attributed her loss largely to sexism. But on the flip side, Hillary actually won the popular vote, which I had forgotten. So I'm sure sexism played a role. I'm absolute, no doubt about it. And there was a depressed vote, but it wasn't. I was thinking about it. I'm not sure that it was the conclusive issue like I had previously thought.
I would say it was a combination of misogyny and racism. I wouldn't attribute it strictly to the misogyny aspect. But those are merely motivators for the people on the right who've already decided that they love Trump. So I don't think that really made a huge difference.
What do you think made the biggest difference with undecideds?
I think it's a combination. We've already talked about one, which I think that, she should have been the nominee from the get-go. And number two, I think they kind of let the media get away with saying how terrible things are, when if you looked at it from a purely statistical standpoint of job growth, stock market indicators, income levels, the level of the deficit going down, et cetera, everything was an improvement over what Trump had left us. And they never really articulated that well. They never explained, hey, look, we fixed what 4 years of this orange-tinted moron caused.
Yep.
And it takes twice as long to fix a problem as to cause a problem. So here you are. And I think it speaks volumes. We mentioned this, you and I, before we started the stream here, but one of the current top 10 searches on Google is, how do I cancel or change my vote? And if you think about it, that tells you a lot, is that people honestly didn't think this was going to happen. And they're suddenly realizing, oh, well, I just took a crap in my Wheaties. Maybe I should try to fix it. Well, it's a little late for that, kiddo.
Now, I think, was it you that was telling me that there was a contingent of Muslim voters who, when voting for Trump, listed as the reason that they were voting for Trump was that Biden had been supporting, had not stopped Israel, when Trump is going to be 10 times. I mean, Trump has made it crystal clear.
If I remember correctly, it's Dearborn, Michigan, which is the highest concentration of Muslim Americans in the country. And supposedly they either voted for third party, primarily Jill Stein and the Greens, or they voted for Trump because they wanted to register their displeasure. Well, I think they're going to regret that decision. It's coming up fairly soon in the next 4 years. You want to talk about a group that's tailor-made for persecution and scapegoating.
Yep.
There you have it.
Somebody, we have a couple of people in live chat saying, what is a tariff? Was also, they're Googling it now. So I guess that
I think I told you about this, but there was a case of some guy who runs a small privately owned contract or business, a factory, and he had to call his people in the day after the election and said, look, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to cancel the Christmas bonus that I usually give you guys for this year. Why? Well, because I have to save all that money to pay for the tariffs on the stuff we need to import from China to run this factory. Well, that's not how tariffs work. Yeah, it is, dumb shit.
So,
And I think that that's one of the issues that so many Americans just bought the soundbite and assumed that, oh, that's the truth. That's how everything's. The Orange Man is going to make everything right.
Is anything but a soundbite now a lost cause, or is there a way to reach people in the middle that the Dems had failed to do? Let me rephrase that. We've got this problem now where there was so much dissatisfaction in general that people seem to have voted for Trump. Many people maybe now are having buyer's remorse. How do we keep that sort of thing from happening again in the future, if there's any way to at least mitigate that?
Well, one of the things I think might be helpful is a kind of a tradition that the Brits use, which is a shadow government. And to a limited extent, Trump did that during the previous 4 years. Is every time the Biden administration would announce some decision, some spokesperson for the MAGAs would say, well, if we had been in charge, we would have done it this way. And I think that having somebody, Harris be an obvious choice if they think she's going to be the one running in 28. Have somebody, huh?
I can't hear
that's
Brooks.
the way
I
the
just saw that
Democratic Party works. So
Brooks has joined us, so let me get him a window. I can't hear him until we get him. And because Ethan was so slow in showing up, Brooks is going to get Ethan's window. So let me grab Brooks and let me open up the window.
He said he doesn't have a video today, Nick.
Oh, no worries. But I can.
You get me. I'm working in my garage, so
you'd be the dark horse candidate in the dark.
There we go. Something like that.
How you doing?
Good. Just working on it's a long story, but I felt joining because it felt like a nice, relaxing vibe, and you're talking about stuff I care about. So I figured I'd say hello and join in.
Well, thank you. No, we're glad you did. We do want to try to keep it nice and relaxed. I mean, we got a super chat that I'll get to in a minute, but I'm also going to change your name just so that, because you sound and talk so much like Ethan, I'm sure people are going to get the two of you confused.
Oh yes. I mean, I'm certainly not an original by any means. So.
Yeah, I want to continue the thought that
please.
I think a shadow government kind of movement would be a good thing, where you can basically second guess everything the Trump administration does, and as all the pain and suffering that his decisions that he has said he's going to be putting into effect come into play, the shadow Democratic government can say, we wouldn't have done that. We would have done this. This would have helped these people that he's harming. And for everybody else, this is the other stuff we would do, which would make your life so much better. And you keep hammering on that kind of thing for the next 4 years. You need to make it increasingly evident to, for lack of a better word, a drowsing American public that they did something incredibly stupid. And, hopefully we will have a chance in 28 to repair the damage.
No, they'll do it again.
Yeah, unfortunately, they probably will. But
yeah, it's so for me, the election is fascinating, and seeing a lot of takes, and I keep going back to where I've kind of landed, which is the average person isn't really like us in that we're talking about this would be a good idea, this would be a bad idea. Whoa, I wish we did this instead, or here's how we'd help. The average person just genuinely just doesn't think kind of that long about stuff. There's an example of President Sunday, friend of your show. He has been in sort of a rivalry with this other guy who claims to be a leftist, who Trump put out his big homeless plan, and the guy is screaming about how it's the best thing ever and how people on the left are stupid and just, Orange Man bad. And it's like, but it's not. It's concentration camps for the homeless far away from cities. It won't solve anything. It won't fix anything. It'll make everything worse. But it does feel, and it has the signifiers of those things that matter. So emotionally, people go with it, and then they justify afterwards. It's how things tend to work in politics. A lot of people voted.
At the same time, I would note that one of the things that kept resonating was they kept hammering on certain points, oh, the border, oh, immigration, everybody. And if you keep repeating that message long enough, people will start to believe and listen.
Well, especially when you don't have a
global's
response.
maxim, and it works, unfortunately, but it's true.
Well, but they didn't have a response, and there's actually a lot of very, very good, easy responses to it that they could have said that they just never did. Like they kind of just they responded
That's
with
my point. The Democrats never did offer a counter proposal for what to do to solve these problems.
No, and I mean, there's a few big reasons for that. But even if there was a counter proposal, it would have been, and what Harris had was a complex policy choice, which doesn't land the same. It's the challenge of if you go back to the Weimar, or if you go back to Reagan. I've been using this example a lot lately. McGovern Reagan, 1984, which was an ass kicking of ass kickings when it comes to the presidency. You had one who absolutely became a real statesman type, really into policy. Here's what we can do. Here's how I can fix things. Complex legalese. And then Reagan saying, I will make big space net in sky with lasers. And everyone went, that's fucking great. We love that because it's easy. It emotionally hits in a certain way. And that is what people mostly vote on. I think policy wonks. It's it's the emotional response. It's an emotional response to the soundbite. It's because if they had just said back, the border, and again, I don't know if I have a policy or a way to do it, but if they had a way to just simply respond, here's and powerfully and emotionally, here's a simple way that we're going to fix it. I think it would have done things. We saw this with Bernie, for example, in 2016, where he had real responses to things that he was really pushing and that were real simple ways to talk about it that became very resonant. Whereas Hillary, deeply policy-minded and policy wonk, just was not inspiring. Just really didn't work. And I think I saw a lot of that in Kamala, just very deflating to vote for.
I was troubled by the parading of Hollywood actors and all that, coming out. And I'm sitting there going okay, the people that might get impressed with this are the people who are already going to be voting for her. And everyone else is going to be sitting there saying, well, what does Eminem have to do with, politics? What is Eminem gonna, why is he the one who's introducing, actually, I think he introduced Barack Obama, which at least was, made sense, but it was off-putting even to me.
Any of the other multitude of Hollywood symbols, it makes you look popular, but it doesn't give people a sense of what you're going to try to accomplish or how you're going to do it.
So
the Republicans had Hulk Hogan. A lot of this shit happened on both sides, and there's a lot of well, was it worse on this side or that side? Why did this side? Why are we critiquing the Democrats for having celebrities who have every right to voice when the right had the same thing with a whole bunch of really weird celebrity choices? Again, the Hulkster tearing off his shirt at the Republican National Convention, which is a weird LSD trip in and of itself. But it's why is it detrimental to the Dems but not the Republicans? And it's
I think it's the amount. I mean, with the Dems, every single convention was just so many, and that have the DJ, that have the and I don't know I do make fun of it with the Republicans when they have if they have the Star Spangled Banner and neon lights everywhere and all the other stuff. I think they did a lot less of that this year. They had a lot more of Trump coming up and talking absolute nonsense, or one of his surrogates coming up and talking absolute nonsense. But, you know, they were at least talking.
I mean,
But
to a
at the
point,
same time, when they let him drone on and on, the audience would leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's be honest, half of that audience was probably paid shills.
I mean, it comes down to the same thing. It's Republicans saw their interest in voting for Trump, and they did, and Democrats didn't see that interest in voting for Kamala. And it's kind of across the board we see this. There's a reason that there's depression in the places it was, and there's a reason Republicans took places that they hadn't before. They're just not seeing their interest, and that's what makes people not vote. It's always been the case.
Yeah.
So we've got, let's see, Sinister Porpoise, Trump _dumbass_level is equal to Musk _dumbass_level. Another programming joke. Thank you, Porpoise, for your $2 super chat. We really appreciate it. And Go With the Family, a 3-month member, gives a heart and says, thank you, guys. And Dunk on You with a $20 super chat. Dunk on You, once again, thank you so much for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. Let's hope Trump doesn't invoke Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution, claiming it's to resolve a conflict. He can adjourn Congress and thus try to make recess appointments. Oh, and howdy. We can get into that. I do want to try to keep it sort of on the lighter side. I don't know how much is Congress going to fight.
I think you can keep it light because I got a question. It's a question for both of you because we've talked about this before. But what rules Trump? Is it capital? Is it ideology? What is it? What's the thing that drives him more than anything?
Ego.
Sure, but with what?
I think one of the key drivers for him is he wants to be popular. I think you're dealing with somebody whose daddy didn't show him any affection as he was growing up. So he seeks that approbation from the mob.
Sure. And that's why he made the Matt Gaetz call. I mean, the Matt Gaetz choice is literally him saying, all right, now all of you get to prove how much you love me by voting because I know how you're going to vote because it's a public vote. And it's basically him saying, how many of you are my friends?
Yeah.
So totally. For me, it's obviously the narcissism, all that. To me, he's had the same drive behind it, which is wealth, money through power through money. A lot of the stuff that he has talked about doing and then betrayed himself on is a lot of the same stuff that you see he did the first time around. And I'm not this is not like a cope thing or anything or saying not to worry. I find his presidency horrifying on multiple levels. But so many of the things that he's claiming he's going to do are very similar to stuff he claimed the first time around, in which I'm going to build the entire wall. He built just enough to get a photo op and then stopped giving a shit because that's how he's literally operated his whole life. It's spend as little money as possible, make as much profit as possible. Oh, I'll get peace done between Saudi Arabia and Israel as long as my son-in-law gets to do a big giant deal with Savvy and their investment firm for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's just these kinds of things that a lot of the stuff that would genuinely destroy the economy. I actually will be surprised if he does things that would do that because at that point, it doesn't matter anymore. None of this, the moment the American economy dies, the dollar dies in value. Any of these things, and it's not stuff that I think people would debate on. If we were to, do a lot of the stuff that he has pitched, it would devalue businesses in America in a drastic way and destroy a lot of things, and his money would be worth a lot less. And I'm hesitant to say that he's not aware of that. He's an idiot, but he doesn't have that many stupid people managing his money.
I like how the caution there, though. You're hesitant to say, Yeah.
I am, but it feels more realistic than this idea that he's literally Hitler. Like, because what Hitler was is Hitler was someone who was responsive in a very particular way, but he had around him, and he had built over the course of a decade, brown shirts and Nazis that did very particular acts and extraordinary acts of violence and had hate in very particular ways. And capital wasn't their thing. Trump does a lot of that rhetoric because it gains power. That's how fascism works. It gains you power with the reactionary base. But I think he showed his first term that he's more inclined to do whatever it takes to maintain the profit sector for the capitalist class than really, calling in the militias everywhere and all of these things that absolutely could have happened when he was president. And it's like, okay, so where's the line? And for me, constantly, the line is, where is business being hurt? I will protect that. I have to, because the rich people, the Adelsons, for example, are just donating to him in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars to him personally and his businesses and investing in his businesses. And this interconnected weave and web of capital and venture capital, thanks to Peter Thiel, these people don't want to lose. Like, they want power, but they keep power through the power of the dollar.
So, what about his cabinet picks? I mean, ostensibly, I have to believe RFK is going to destroy if he does what he sounds like he's going to do.
Has he announced him yet? Because
yes, he's announced him for Health and Human Services.
When did that happen?
Well, he announced the nomination. That was yesterday, I think.
No, that one was today.
Oh, that one was today? Okay,
that was today.
They're coming.
I was on a plane today.
So, and then, so now if he goes through with half of that, large pharmaceutical companies. I mean, there's already been a huge drop in the stocks of Pfizer and other manufacturers of vaccines because we have an anti-vaxxer who is in charge, well, not yet in charge of, but is the nominee for the Secretary for Health and Human Services.
And these are Trump's primary financiers also during the campaign.
Well, so that's, I mean,
that's fascinating.
So what do you think is going to happen there?
It's going to be the same thing that you tended to see in the first time when he had extreme picks. He even picked, I think, Tulsi Gabbard for national security or intelligence. I can't remember which one it was. Intelligence. And these are people who are firebrands in one way or another. They are. I think the underlying mythos of sort of where they touch, though, is that Trump is putting in people he can control. And I think Kennedy, who is absolutely someone who claims not to be controllable, has shown that he is. He's shown that he's easily manipulated by people being willing to give him things. We're horse trading this for that, which is, I mean, a thing he literally has ran against in his campaign, which is hilarious. But he's a horse trader just like anything else. So it's, what does that mean? How do these things come to be? Are they going to ban all vaccines? One, they can't. The government doesn't have the ability. They have recommendations. That's how it works. Fluoride is not a thing that's nationally ordered. Fluoride is a national recommendation. And there's, like, I am in a county right now, our water system doesn't have fluoride in it. There's no rules. Health and Human Services does a great deal of sort of recommendations in general. When you talk about the actual rules over pharmaceutical companies, the capture that's already happened there is horrifying. But I would, again, be very interested to watch how Kennedy will undo that, because you'll start to see things like Ozempic and other things become deeply under fire and under lawsuits incredibly fast. You will see, if vaccines get pulled, if he makes statements like they never had testing or that they need better testing, you will begin to see lawsuits against these companies in the billions of dollars. You will see that very quickly. And they'll be backed by the Health and Human Services Secretary. So these are things that would do irreversible damage to these businesses. Irreversible. And it's going to be, again, the knock-on effect of these things, however you feel. And I'm not really the type of anarchist who tends to want to just, allow anything
he
to happen.
alienates the oligarchic class, that's where everything starts to unravel for him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And on top of it, when he does this and we see inflation explode because money right now is already like sort of not being invested in things. But as money contracts and capital contracts, we will see less money spent across the board. Wages will fall. We will see this. We will see subsidies go out the window. We will see states and education start falling apart. These things are so deeply interconnected that there's not like we'll pull this, pick 'em stick, this marble drop stick out, and the rest of it's going to be fine. It's like, no, they're all tied together, and you'll just start to see these things sort of wildly collapse. And again, a lot of people in his cabinet know this. They're zealots in their own way, but they're zealots in a particular way. And Eric Prince is a great example. Peter Thiel is a great example of this. They're people who understand how interconnected these things are and how they want regulation in particular ways. The homeless camps, for example, he's not going to hire a whole bunch of like public servants to run these homeless camps. He's going to hire Blackwater and other private security firms that will do this. This is the function you start to see happen. And as it slowly happens, you will start to see other things lose their funding. You will see money go elsewhere. And the American people will feel it, I think, far more acutely. And it's going to be a very long 4 years if this is the road. Otherwise, if it's just rhetoric, which is what Trump's presidency primarily was, rhetoric. Like, he didn't keep it, like all of his worst stuff he didn't do. He got rid of Roe v. Wade by basically completely fucking the justice system up. He'll continue to do that. He's going to have a conservative Supreme Court. Basically, until I die, we will have a conservative Supreme Court. Like, we're fucked. And this is what voting does. But, the wall is the wall. What there's a lot of stuff where it's like, what are we going to do and how? And how are these things going to land? Like, what's Tulsi going to do in the intelligence group? Like, I'm fascinated by that because that's not a pick I would have guessed her for. Like, that's not her background at all. It's almost silly.
Sell information to the highest bidder. I can totally see her doing that.
I can see her finding ways to support India and Modi's government explicitly, but she's been a grifter for forever, really. But what is she going to do? It's very similar to like Matt Gaetz being in the AG. He's never done anything that is worth that. He really hasn't even practiced law. I think he lost his license for like 2 of the last 5 years because of the investigation of human trafficking. By the way, the report on that comes out end of this week. So,
they are going to release it?
Apparently. It's a bipartisan group. I don't know why one person wouldn't.
I have no doubt it's going to get leaked at some point because it's a bipartisan group. But because they no longer have jurisdiction over him, they at least postponed the release of it, and I wasn't sure if they were going to formally release it or we just have to wait until it gets leaked. It'll get leaked. I just don't know when, but if they release it,
my money is sooner rather than later. and then you again, he's just a loyalty test. Tulsi, just a loyalty test. JFK, just a loyalty test. The goal is to just find out who in the Senate and Congress is Trump's toadies, because he didn't have full control over them before. He wasn't sure who it was. And I think it's telling. Was it Tommy Tuberman who said, anyone who votes against Gates will be primarying? I think he said that. And it's like, this is, the loyalty party is complete at that point. It's not going to be functional. It never has been. It wasn't the first time around. And we're going to see a lot of horrific shit out of it. But again, are they going to really do the thing that makes their fortunes worthless?
is that why go for the recess appointments to see who's going to fight him on that and who's not?
That's my bet. He wants to find out loyalty within his own party so he can stack and break, because it's only 2 years till the next congressional.
You need to have the night of the long knives to eliminate competition.
Yeah.
You have to do the internal purge before you start hitting the external enemies.
And there's a lot of internal. I don't know if you ever watched. There's that one congressman who talked about Matt Gaetz showing photos of him having sex with women on the floor and how he did a lot of erectile dysfunction drugs, like bragging to people on the floor of Congress. There's a congressman talking about how Matt Gaetz did this all the time and how it's gross. And then now says, like, well, I've had my differences, but, Matt Gaetz might be really good. Like, dude. But it's loyalty. And that's what they're doing, is they're just getting everything in order, cleaning house, and then seeing what happens.
That's what the warrior board is.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think Trump can control Musk. So what is either going on there or what's going to happen there?
He absolutely can control Musk. Musk doesn't actually have. Musk exists only because of government contracts. He's actually not a businessman. Like, as much as like he may be put forth as that, Tesla never turned a profit on its own. It only made money because of a very particular law written by Tesla people that said that if you didn't have an electric car, if you weren't an electric car maker, every time someone bought a regular car, you had to pay an electric car maker in that state. Happened to be California where they did this. So he made all his money just through government subsidies. SpaceX is no different. That's all he does. So when the federal purse strings are attached to one person, which they are, he absolutely has to knuckle under and do whatever Trump says. He's a bitch. That's what he is.
Well, that would explain the jumping. Okay, that's
he's the phrasing is he's a bitch in the heart. Pardon the phrase, but that's how I would call him. He's gross.
Oh, he's detestable. I always saw him as so beyond reason that he couldn't even see his own self-interest, which would make him uncontrollable. But I think you made a very good case for why that's not only not the case, but that he's actually already under the thumb of Trump, which would answer another question I had, which is why he so quickly moved to that position, because previously he had been like, oh, I kicked Trump off, and he was like, yeah, I'll kind of invite him back, but we'll see what happens. And that he went from very lukewarm to I'm in the back of his rallies jumping.
Yeah, and there's the other side of this, and I'll say, I do not believe, and if I'm wrong, that would suck, but I do not believe that it's the case that he's going to stop every election from happening. He's going to take over and become president for life. Like, there's a tripartite nature when it comes to how a despot rules, and the military and the capitalist class and the political class are the tripartite, and he does not have that control entirely over this. This is not like Guevara. This is not Castro, who runs all of those things. The military, as much as there are weirdo right-wing shitheads in a lot of places in the military, they're true believer right-wing shitheads. And eliminating the election, kind of for any reason, I personally, the ones I know, the ones who worked with my uncle, the ones who I know through family, I despise them on multiple levels. That's not a thing I foresee the military allowing, honestly. But also, I don't see the rest of the political class or the capitalist class. It's not a thing. It would destabilize so many things in this country. It's kind of a wild, I know it's a fear, but I don't believe that's where we're at.
You just reminded me of my views on Pence, because I had made this argument many times. Someone had said, we shouldn't impeach Trump, because then we'd be stuck with Pence, who is ideologically worse. I was like, oh yeah, ideologically, Pence is horrific, except for the fact that he's institutionalized. He truly believes in the institution. In fact, he believes God set up the institution. So if there's, he will not tear down, he will not violate the Constitution. Trump doesn't give a fuck either way. So in terms of who I prefer in office, it's the one who is far, far worse, but at least believes in the system and will fight to defend the system. Pence is actually more qualified than Trump, who ideologically I was closer to.
again, the moment that happens, there's a lot of these things. One, the federal government doesn't have the ability to do. So, like the homeless camps, great example. The government doesn't have, one, the people, but two, the ability to go around and round up homeless people in tents in every city in America. I know what they're going to do. I'll get to that, but they're not going to like create a new police force to do this. If they did, let's say they did, I can name 5 or 6 states that would just say no, and that would end up coming to blows with the government in one way or another. Like, there's a lot of things that this becomes what Trump loves the most, which is I get to claim and do anything. He will suddenly decide to deport 18 million, but oh, that lawsuit is stopping me. You pesky lawyers, I would have gotten away from it. Oh, well, I'm just going to say that I did it for the next 4 years and be a hero to these people. That's the Trump I know, not the one who actually does anything. He's a man of facades.
Yeah, soundbite again.
Yeah.
I did that with his taxes too. I'd love to release my taxes, but they're being audited by the IRS, which of course has no impact on. Yeah,
he knows the trick every rich person in our country knows. Make lawsuits go on for long enough and they go away. That's it. That's not a new thing. That's a thing for like the last 50 years. There are movies about it. There's lots of movies about it. There's television shows built around the premise. It's like a really known quantity. And so it's like he just is going to do what he did. And it's what he did last time. He did X, Y, and Z, but then lawsuits happened, so he couldn't do it. So he screamed how the Democrats ruined his plan, but he did do it so he could keep his promise, even though he didn't really give a shit. He doesn't give a shit.
If it wasn't for them, everything would be great.
Yes. He's a Scooby-Doo villain. He's a Scooby-Doo villain. Like it'll end up being, he'll go to Texas with some military thing, and Abbott will let him because Texas is a fucking wild place. And they'll go to some border town and they'll have a big show of like fucking National Guard and military rounding up some homeless, bunch of immigrants, deporting people, putting them in camps, like a big show. Democrats will be really upset. They won't do it in California. Jesus Christ. I'm very confused about how that would go. They're not going to do it in New York City. Like, they're going to do it in a friendly place. It's going to go for a few weeks. It'll be big news. And then it'll fizz onto the next story, and then they'll just do the next thing. But then they probably won't do any more with that the rest of his time. Like, they're not like real. Like, they're not real politicians. They're kind of wild.
So somebody asked in the live chat if I had heard about the ruble plummeting, and Titan was able to get me some data, which I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. The U.S. dollar has increased 1.2% over, in value, and I guess the ruble is doesn't look to me like it's plummeted, but it certainly has gone down. It's down 0.86%. But the idea being that unless I'm dollar ruble. Okay. I do see why there's a sharp, just because the dollar had been a little stronger just a week ago. So over the week, it's been a significant change. And then Titan has suggested, and we've discussed this before, Commander Macmillan and I, that Russia has been interfering they interfered significantly in previous elections, and in this one, their main method of interfering has been to pay and promote essentially propagandists who already exist, who are actually American, to help them continue to do their work, promote the Alex Jones of America. And so one thing that Titan asked, and as is so wont to happen, is it possible that Russia has maybe even created their own downfall if the dollar is becoming stronger over the perception of Trump as a strong man? What impact is that going to have on Russia, if any? Any thoughts?
I don't think the ruble itself is that important. It's the prices they can get for their gas, oil,
Natural
and other
gas.
natural resources.
Spot on.
And they get those profits typically in dollars. So if the dollar's going up, they actually benefit.
Yeah, I don't know much to add. It's
Yeah, the ruble's an internal currency, which they hand out like the worthless paper it is.
Yeah, I assume too there is no reason. In fact, there's a lot of reason for the opposite. There's certainly no reason that Trump would put any pressure on China or on India to stop buying natural gas from Russia. In fact, he'll probably do his best to make sure that. I mean, other
Unless he
countries are
sees
already
a
looking
way for the U.S. oil barons to profit by selling our oil to those places.
He did say he's going to increase domestic production, which is already at its highest levels in U.S. history.
We're already meeting our own needs and exporting a significant portion. So
and don't forget, 15% of the EU's natural gas comes from Russia.
Yeah.
Still, by the way. So, yeah. I mean, we care about Ukraine, but come on, I gotta cook my food and I gotta have water heated and stuff. Like, sorry, I'm being very sarcastic. That didn't come out right. Sorry.
Yeah, well, well, it's especially for I think Germany, where it gets very, very cold. Is Germany still getting gas from Russia? I've forgotten. I know the EU made a.
They all are. It's just a question of like how much and where. But yeah, there's still a good chunk of it. Yes.
All right. Yeah. I remember there was a push by the EU to try to help countries that were dependent on Russian gas, but it was marginally successful at the beginning, and then just seemed to stop, as you had pointed out earlier, Brooks. So many of these programs seem to start. Achieve a little bit. Titan put this out. There was a great line in the West Wing. Jed Bartlett has a PhD in economics, and somebody says, "Okay, so how does economics work?" He said, "Very simple. There's a whole bunch of levers in front of you. And basically every day you push one or two up or down a little bit. You have no idea which ones you just keep pushing them up or down, and over time you see what it does." It's just like. Oh, well, that's an interesting...
Did you already cover, since you're wanting lighthearted, did you already cover my favorite news story of the last year?
Well, I don't know.
Alex Jones and the Sandy Hook families buying InfoWars and the website from Alex Jones himself to turn it into a satirical news site that does what Alex Jones did, except funny.
I did not know that that's what they had done with it, but why don't you, do you want to tell people about this? So Alex Jones had to liquidate everything. Yeah.
Yeah, because so he, told the world that the Sandy Hook families didn't lose kids because he's a piece of shit. And they sued and they won just fucking bunch of money, like a hilarious sum of money that it was almost enough for me to feel bad for him. Not quite. It wasn't quite there, but I almost felt bad. And in order to make that money, because they had done their work beforehand, they had lawyers and investigators, he started trying to hide his money, just like he did in the divorce, trying to hide assets. They didn't let him. And one of those big things is InfoWars, which is his website that he has run since the 90s. Basically spewing all of the garbage that I hate in every single way. So the Sandy Hook families made just a huge amount of cash off of this. And it would have been fully within their right to just literally go buy a mansion and relax and enjoy the rest of their lives and make sure that the kids they have are taken care of. But they've also decided to spend it on things to make the world a better place. So they approached the guys behind The Onion, which is a satirical newspaper, one of the best ever. Just amazing. And they decided with them and with bringing back old Onion writers and some of the guys who used to run The Onion, they brought a whole bunch of people. They actually, at auction, bought Infowars.com and the workings of the entire thing to turn it with the families. The families is helping The Onion do this in order to make a satirical making fun of Alex Jones and conspiracy theorist website. That's really awesome. I just think this is the best fucking thing I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think I've got it. We do have it on our webpage. Okay.
And yes, they got the studio, they got the archives, they've got
Yeah, they got his mug.
they've got everything. They have all of the footage that never aired. They have his notes. They have his computers. I am so like I don't think I can prepare myself for how wonderful that's going to be. As much as everything's a nightmare the next 4 years, The Onion and what they've done has been great. I think there's actually going to be a lot of solace. I'll probably take a lot of solace in what The Onion's going to do with that for the next couple of years.
So we're rebuilding our archive on the web, and I will get this up to our website so that you could see it. It's actually it may be there. A man was upset with his local police department, and so he created I think it's in Chicago. It's a notoriously racist department, notoriously racist town. So he made a satirical website for the police department and said, if you've ever shot a black guy, you qualify right away.
Yes.
Yeah. So the police found out who it was and sued him, or tried to arrest him and sued him. And this went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And so this was obviously unfortunately the Supreme Court sided against him. They said that the site looked enough like the actual police site that it couldn't be distinguished.
I have to agree a little bit. I actually agree with the judgment, because it kind of was like, hey, just so you know, people might actually think they're going to the real police website and they may need the police. You're kind of being a dick. I kind of get that. Like, I do.
Here's why it's relevant.
Yes.
I have heard multiple attorneys say that this is the single greatest Supreme Court brief ever filed. It's an amicus brief. What that means is it is a third party who, for some reason, has an interest in the outcome of the case. They don't have standing per se. They're not suing anybody, but they have an interest in the outcome of the case, and so they file an amicus as a friend of the court. So The Onion filed an amicus brief on behalf of Anthony Novak, who was trying to get his loss overturned. So this brief was filed in the U.S. Supreme Court. The brief, I'm going to get past all the table of authorities. Interest of the amicus curiae. The Onion is the world's leading news publication, offering highly acclaimed, universally revered coverage of breaking national, international, and local news events. Rising from its humble beginnings as a print newspaper in 1756, The Onion now enjoys a daily readership of 4.3 trillion and has grown into the single most powerful and influential organization in human history. In addition to maintaining a towering standards of excellence for which the rest of the industry aspires, The Onion supports more than 350,000 full and part-time journalism jobs. Its numerous news bureaus and has served with distinction in advisory capacity for such nations as China, Syria, Somalia, and the former Soviet Union. The Onion owns and operates a majority of the world's transoceanic shipping lanes, stands on the nation's leading edge in matters of deforestation and strip mining, and proudly conducts tests on millions of animals daily. So it goes on, and what's really interesting about this brief is you'd think it's all silliness.
Oh, it's so good.
It is. It's an amazing brief, and what they do is they oscillate between saying something patently absurd and then explaining why it's so important that they be allowed to say these things.
It has the single best definition of parody that I've ever read. And I mean that not as like a I'm saying it ironically hipster style, but more in the it not only defines parody in terms of like how important it is philosophically, but it does it through the use of parody on top of itself. It's one of the most extraordinary things. Do you mind if I read another part, Nick?
Please do. Please do. I'm glad you got it. Please do.
Tu stultus es. You are dumb. These three Latin words have been the Onion's motto and guiding light since it was founded in 1988 as America's finest news source, leading its writers toward the paper's singular purpose of pointing out that its readers are deeply gullible people. The Onion's motto is central to this brief for two important reasons. First, it's Latin. The Onion knows that the federal judiciary is staffed entirely by Latin dorks. They quote Catullus in the original Latin in chambers. They sweetly whisper stare decisis into their spouses' ears. They mutter quid bono under the breath while picking up after their neighbors' dogs. So the Onion knew that unless it pointed to a suitably Latin rallying cry, its brief would be operating far outside the court's vernacular. The second reason, perhaps mildly more important, is that the phrase "you are dumb" captures the heart of parody, tricking readers into believing that they're seeing a serious rendering of some specific form, a pop song lyric, a newspaper article, a police beat, and then allowing them to laugh at their own gullibility when they realize that they've fallen victim to one of the oldest tricks in the history of rhetoric. The San Francisco Bay Guardian Inc. versus Superior Court 21, California Raptor 2D 464466. The very nature of it's a real court case, by the way. The very nature of parody. The very nature of parody is to catch the reader off guard at first glance, after which the victim recognizes the joke is on him to the extent it is caught unaware. And then they go into the Hellenic form of parody. It's one of the most insane. The whole thing is so fucking brilliant. It's again, the Onion is a masterwork of work, but Jesus Christ.
Well, and they do that in this, which is they say, okay, they tell a joke in the actual brief, and then they say, okay, now think back. If we had told you beforehand that this is a joke, it would have been a lot less funny. Suggesting that you have to point out and say this is satire defeats the entire purpose of satire. If satire isn't at least plausibly real, it cannot critique the whole point of satire is to critique from within. So you're critiquing the system from within by parroting and mimicking that system. If you have to say that you're doing it, you are no longer doing it.
And they mention the eternal, in my opinion, like greatest version of this. They say, assume you are reading what appears to be a boring economics paper about the Irish overpopulation crisis of the 18th century, and yet, strangely enough, it seems to advocate for solving the dilemma by cooking and eating babies. That seems a bit cruel until you realize you're reading a modest proposal. Just to be clear, the Onion is not trying to compare itself to Jonathan Swift. Its writers are far more talented, and their output will be read long after that hack Swift has been lost to the sands of time. Still, The Onion and its writers share with Swift the common goal of replicating the form precisely in order to critique it from within. It's such good writing, it's hard for me to even, I'm just deeply envious as I read the whole thing because every line is just perfectly what it needs to be. It's self-referential, it's over the top, and it surprises everyone. I read it again, and I'm like, God damn, these guys, they got me.
And it thoroughly pisses off the MAGAs and conservatives because they have no sense of humor, really. Their sense of humor is being cruel to other people.
Yep.
That's why that, oh, that's weird, was such a powerful critique of anything they were doing for a while because they had no answer for it.
I couldn't believe how effective that was. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's huge. Still is.
I'm actually putting together a piece, a video essay. I did a big one on The Substance, which if you haven't seen, wonderful horror film. But I'm doing a new one because I think a lot of people haven't really spent a lot of time thinking through how we take in images, stories, movies, whatever it is. The assumption is that we take in a thing. It's kind of this idea of this platonic ideal of a film or a book or a website. And so this concept that we've considered puts us in a very troubling position, because if, for example, the example people are talking about in the chat, for example, RoboCop is great. I like Starship Troopers as another example. These are things that are very much satire, parody, and intended to be. The reason they don't work on everyone is, and it's the complaint of a good number of people. They're like, look, it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work on me, it's not going to work as satire. But what they don't get is that things aren't a piece. There isn't a single or true way for a piece of art to be or to be taken in. The way that we exist today, the way art exists, is we take it all in pieces and we choose it. We choose how that's done. There's a great viral video a few years ago that kind of exemplifies this, where they have like these basketball players passing a ball, and they're like, how many times, like, watch this and we'll have you count something. And then you watch them pass the ball and they go, what color was the dog? And it's because you don't notice, because you're paying attention to the ball being passed, that you don't even notice this dude in a dog suit moonwalking through the middle of everyone. And it's a great viral video. The challenge is that's not like some one-off trick. This is how all video and art and images work. We take in the pieces we are aroused by, focused by, grabbed by. We leave the others by the wayside. So when we have people who come out the other side with Starship Troopers and they go, I just don't get how it's parody. It's like, that's because you're attaching to terrifying things emotionally and you're not noticing the critique. Other people will attach to other things. We all
the
take
number of
things in
people I met
different-
in the military who thought that, the premise of Starship Troopers was the way we should establish our
Yep.
society. It's like, what the
Exactly.
actual
I've
hell
heard
is
that.
wrong with you?
I've heard that from the military. I've heard my first encounter with anybody in the military. Like several people, like, oh yeah, you should read. It's absolutely the way. It was designed as a blueprint for how to run the military.
Well, and it's
The only thing
there's
is,
part- Go for
Heinlein
it.
may have actually intended it that way.
I mean, he was a hyper fascist, so what are you
Yeah.
gonna do? But it's the kind of thing, like, people take what they are aroused by from it, or they attach to the parts that get them, and it's things that they show the classroom being very orderly and everyone answering questions and everyone's attractive and they're wearing good clothes and all of that stuff that is semiotically attractive. In between it, we're not seeing the other parts of things. And I remember seeing it in the theater the first time, and I didn't even care for the film at the end of it. I didn't like it. It was uncomfortable. I didn't really get that it was parody, because there's that end moment where Neil Patrick Harris looks like a bad guy in Star Wars, and he's really proud that this cowering, terrified animal is scared, and everyone else is cheering that this thing is scared. And that's how the movie ends, really, is like how happy everyone is that this enemy is scared. And
Would you like to know more?
yeah, and if you're cheering that something's scared, that's how you can attach to that. Like, people attach to multitudes of things. We are complex. The world is complex. This gets back to how people voted for Trump. They didn't vote for a thing. They voted, they took in parts that they gathered. They took in things they attached to, and then they went with what they did. No one didn't do this. Everyone voted in the election for their interest. We have conversations about whether it was their best interest, and I think we could have good ones, but they voted for their interest, and that's where their interest was. That's how it works.
I did drop in the selective attention test that you were referring to, so anybody who wants to just follow the directions on the test. It's a great video, so that's in there. I love that one. And I also did put in from the Supreme Court website. It's now in the description, and I dropped it in if you would like to read the Onion's amicus brief in defense of satire. It was brilliant. They admitted that they were going to piss off. They said too, they're like, this is where, somewhere in there, like, this is where you're going to start to get angry with us for, pointing out all the faults in the system. So let's just throw in a whole bunch of random Latin words, tu quoque, amicus sorius, and then it's just a whole bunch of just random Latin words thrown in there.
remember that Trump has said, he wants to get like Saturday Night Live and comedians who make fun of him. He thinks they should be in prison.
Or shot.
You can't criticize the God King.
Well, it's one. It's
And
but
the Supreme
again,
Court basically is, I think, echoing his opinion.
well, I mean, they're, and again, this is where my question I keep coming back to, and it's a baseline. What runs things? Like, what actually runs and controls desire? What is the shit that things are going for? And I have never seen any reason to believe it's anything but capital at the end of the day. There are zealots in other ways. People can be zealots when they have no money. That's very common. But as soon as you see any of these groups get any level of cash, suddenly cash becomes the thing. So for me, I'm finding it more and more difficult to go, he's going to do things that will be destructive to capital, because that's not how it works. That's not really how it goes. It's not, ultimately it's not what Hitler did either. Like, his was a very different specific place. Germany wasn't the ruler of hegemony globally. Like, they were in a position of being at the shit end of the stick in a lot of ways. So they didn't have the economy where they were in charge. America runs the fucking world. Right?
So, Lance, any thoughts?
About
anything we've had this conversation? Anything we've discussed so far? We've got. I think the links have been put into the live chat. I'm now away from the live chat, so let me get back to the live chat and just see.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are concerned, rightfully so, worried, etc., and have been asking, well, what can I do to make this not as bad as it's going to possibly be? And I think this is one of the things we can do, which is to poke fun at them. They really do not have a response for people who make fun of them. It irritates them to no end. It causes them to be unhinged. I think that's, a very effective form of civil disobedience, if you will, in trying to complicate their lives.
Oh, it's the children's story of the emperor having no clothes.
Yeah.
The horror of it all is unraveled by a child laughter. Like, there's a reason that's what it is. Like, you can't laugh at them. High stature requires that people be in high stature. Laughter means that they've lost that. It's the oldest trick in the book. The queen, or the dainty rich woman who's like in a nice dress, who falls and her face goes in a pie. The loss of status, the loss of class is the core of so much of that. And it's why I think one of the things that I really think Kamala fucked up on is putting a leash on Waltz. To me, that's where we started to see the end of that campaign, because he went straight to the couch fucking jokes, and that's the way it should have been. Like, he didn't fuck around. He went right to couch fucker and running mascara and all kinds of stuff, and that shit was funny, and it really upset Republicans. And then Kamala was like, "No, we're gonna have a nice campaign." It's like, well, that's it.
This is one of the problems the Democrats have had for forever. They we're going to fight with kid gloves because it's not nice to be nasty. It's politics. If you don't fight nasty, you're going to lose.
So,
everybody's commentary.
yeah, no, well, no, we just dropped, or I think Titan's about to drop a link to Brooks's channel there. So, is that why? So I remember when Erdogan basically made a law making it illegal to make fun of them, and then tried to imprison a late night Egyptian late night comedian who had been doing that. I guess I don't understand how and why that has the ability to be as effective as it is. Why it unnerves Trump. I mean, you want to get on Trump's shit list for the rest of your life, no matter what you do. Find a way to really make fun of him.
Yeah.
Why do they have that insecurity?
It goes back to that narcissism thing. They want to be the center of attention. They want to be loved, but they're really far more interested in being, I won't say respected, but feared. They want people to be in awe of them. And humor brings them down to our level. And that is a threat to them, because the moment they stop being seen as there and they're just here, they start losing their authority.
Anything to add to that, Brooks, before we wrap up?
When you live a life of excessive repression, which is the world of a reactionary, when the drives of your entire life are basically contorted and twisted until you end up in a place where you are J.D. Vance, who has an Indian wife who he ostensibly, and I would presume, loves, and half Indian children, running with a man who mocked a half Indian presidential candidate, and then you're totally cool with it, and your kids are going to be totally fine with it when they get older and see the shit you let people say about your wife and her kids. When you're that wrapped up in things, you don't have the ability to not be a couch fucker. If you were to call me, Nick, you would be like, say, Brooks, I heard you fucked a couch. I might say yes, whether or not it's true or not, because I don't care. Like, if you're a fucked a couch, it's well, look, are we talking a love seat? Because a love seat's not my thing. I need a couch with a lot of room if I'm gonna fuck it. Like, this is if you don't give a shit and like your life is not one of like this weird repression. I wear nail polish out. I have my hair dyed. I'm fucking, but I'm 6'6" with a giant beard. It's a weird thing for people to deal with, but they'll make comments. I've had people under their breath say the F word as I walk by, and I turn around and go something along the lines of, "So what? You want to fuck? Like, you want to fuck me?" Like, it's this weird dynamic of they don't like things that aren't what Daddy said. I don't know how else to phrase it, but that's their entire world is like, my daddy. That's how they're like, if they could phrase every sentence as my daddy says, they would. They're those sons of bitches. And so when you have that kind of mental space and you have the littlest room for potentiality and possibility, as soon as someone says something that is off that track, it means everything except success, except being the top, except being this thing that you're supposed to be. And it's pathetic. They're losers. They're, again, inherently losers. Trump's a fat, dumpy, weird dude with like a piggly dick that looks like a mushroom. And he prided himself by being a pedophile, 10 years with his best friend, pedophile Weinstein, talking about how he likes to bang his best friend's wives to prove he can. This is a loser. Like, this is a loser. This is a loser pedophile freak. That's what he is. But there's a lot of people who like empathize with that are losers, who are trying to do the best of what Daddy said, but that's repression from an alcoholic generation who didn't deal with their own issues and sort of laid it upon them, who then revisited it upon their children. And like, this is how these things get passed down. This isn't like weird. And so we just have to deal with it. And again, this is why conservative comedy doesn't work. If you haven't watched it, do watch conservative comedy. It's amazing. It's amazing because it's just not funny. Their whole thing is liberals be angry at us. Ha, 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 ha. That's the entire joke in like everything. Whereas if you watch like lefty comedy, Doug Stanhope just put out a bit talking about, because he was a former libertarian, like a libertarian presidential candidate. But Doug Stanhope's been on a lot of sides, and he's like, I notice a lot of my friends are now spending time trying to get the government to be the thing that gets the government out of their life. And it's a great bit on the whole thing, because that's how humor works. It's self-mocking, it's life-mocking, it's satirical, and it is literally meant to turn different directions. And conservatives can't handle that. I mean, that's fair. Also, a lot of them do fuck kids.
A lot of conservatives or a lot of the people in Trump's cabinet?
I have to assume they voted for Trump. So again, if you're going to vote for a pedophile, I've got to assume you're okay with it.
The minimum age for consent in states south of the Mason-Dixon line.
He flew on the Lolita Express. The first time he ever had sex with Melania was on the Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein on the same plane.
Oh,
did you know that?
I did not know that.
You should listen. There's a lot of hours of Weinstein tapes out there that are kind of amazing.
Oh, Jesus.
And you can hear him talk in 2017, talking about the inner workings of the Trump cabinet. He's still talking to Trump then. Like, he was his best friend.
Well, it does make his cabinet picks make a lot more sense. Duncan, you did give us a gift a while back, like almost an hour ago, 5 memberships. Duncan, you, thank you very much for that. I hope you're still around. Sorry that I didn't get to that sooner. I was learning from Brooks, who I always enjoy chatting with. So glad we could get to that now. And $5 super chat from the Sister Porpoise. If president vote equals Donald Trump, ask, quote, are you sure you wish to vote for a gilded Driggler? No, no. I thank you for throwing a dyslexic person, whatever that word was. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Porpoise, for your continued support. Sorry that I can't make heads or tails of that word, but thank you for your support. It is interesting. Epstein had a number of the conservatives confined the weakest connection to any liberal and Epstein, but when it's people who were besties with Epstein, they're sort of like, Epstein who?
Well, and again, in January of 17, he was telling, and it's on tape, and it's really amazing because he was talking about like stuff Trump was telling him about the other people in the cabinet that we didn't know. Like, it wasn't like on the newspaper. He was talking about like, oh, he had this fucking like last week, blah, blah. It's like, wait a second. This means in some way he's talking to somebody in the Trump administration. And that's like crazy. That's fucking nuts to me in 2017. That's after Epstein was already a word, right? So, like, so again, hey, you can vote for whoever you want. Just, I wouldn't vote for a pedophile, but everyone gets to do their thing.
All right. Well, Brooks, I'm very glad that you joined us. This was very enlightening, and it was nice to go back to the Onion thing as well. That was.
Honestly, I feel like we should do like a dramatic reading of it sometime because it's so well written, and it's a piece of comedy that, I mean, it's good legal scholarly wise, because I have lawyer friends also in like SCOTUS nerds who like follow all that shit, and they said the same thing. It's like the best brief ever. But just from a pure like outsider perspective, it's so well written. Like, it's just so digestible and good.
Yep. It's not that might be an interesting short. Well, it wouldn't be a short, but like we could totally do a video doing that. I could read the God, because it's public records, so I don't think you could get like a strike for just reading.
No. I sent you the PDF that's on the Supreme Court's website.
Perfect. Yep, I see it. All right. Well, I also read I have another. You have to be a member to see it, but it's me reading the resignation. It was when everybody was quitting from the Trump campaign, as all of the people were getting indicted, and everyone suddenly had all these moral objections to what had been going on, and the what's his name? Who was his first Chief Justice, or not Chief Justice, head of the Justice Department. But he went through three of them.
Remember anymore
Because they started resigning, and so we did a reading of the resignation from the Death Star. I am resigning from this Death Star as it's about to explode. I'm not resigning because somebody has fired a torpedo into the exhaust port. I'm leaving based on principle. I enjoyed blowing up planets and keeping the regional governors in line, but I felt that my talents could better be served elsewhere. And
Good Lord.
It's hilarious. So I'll do a reading on this. I think it's going to be. I think that's a really great idea. Thank you, Brooks. Well, thank you very much for coming on. You want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, head to youtube.com/ I believe DGQC. Just Google the DGQC. It's easy enough. Patreon, discord.gg/ DGQC, all that fun stuff. If you have seen The Substance, which is a wonderful horror film, and if you like body horror and very nightmarish, difficult things to watch, it's a stunningly brilliant setup. I have a 40-minute video essay about overthinking it that I'm really happy how it turned out. So feel free to take a look and watch that sometime.
And Titan has just dropped a link to your YouTube channel. And Commander, any final thoughts before we go?
No, just try to keep your chins up, folks.
Yeah, it's you're, and I mean this not as like a cope way. Use the energy to get involved in local politics. That's it. There's no reason not to annoy a city councilman. There's no reason not to run. There's no reason not to petition. Learn about zoning. Learn about something that matters, because if in the next 2 years if all of us even slightly touch things a little bit, it will make the world a measurably better place. And I mean that.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's absolutely correct. Excuse me. All right, well, thank you all for joining us. Tomorrow, we're hoping we're going to be able to have a special interview tomorrow. We'll know hopefully by the end of tonight. It will be tomorrow night, somewhere between 9 and 10 Eastern Standard. And then we expect to do our regular Tuesday news show and then meet again a week from today on downtime. Who knows, maybe we can even finagle to get Brooks back for another hang. But in the meantime, I think absolutely all politics is local. And Karl Rove showed how an effort in a lot of small places can lead to a hugely significant change. And so he was on the other side, of course. But having said that, I think Brooks, you make an excellent point. So thank you for that. Thank you for all the super chats, the memberships, and thank you to the mods. Come join us on the Discord where we're discussing this and any number of other topics. And I do believe Brooks is on our Discord, so if you'd like to just say something annoying and or funny to him, more than welcome to come join us on the Discord and do that. And we're going to stay on top of these other. I do think Mike Lindell is going to be somewhere in the cabinet. It wouldn't shock me.
Oh my God! I pray. I want him to be the new drug war czar. That's where I want him to be.
Mike Lindell.
I think that would be great. Or in charge of recycling. Because look, if we can just have that many My Pillow factories turning all the garbage into My Pillows, because that's what they're made of, like, we could have a real fucking industry here run by a crackhead.
I wish we had started a bingo. We needed a bingo card for this. It's too late. I think too many positions are already nominated. But we'll figure something out. All right. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you actually probably tomorrow. More details on that. If you hit the notification, hit the bell, make sure you get all notifications. You'll get notified when we figure out if we're going to be able to do our interview tomorrow. And other than that, have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you. Oh, and of course, yep, all right. So look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good night all.